Hey guys, techyShenanigans here. I'm back with another video, and this is the iPad Pro. This is specifically the 10.5-inch iPad Pro. I'm finally here. It's finally time for me to do a review on it. I know it's been a little over a month since I last unboxed it, but I felt that doing a review after 2 weeks wasn't really enough justice to really get my opinion on how I feel about this device and whether it's worth picking up. So I'm going to talk about a couple of points, and then I'm going to ultimately give you my conclusion as to whether I think it's worth the extra cost associated with it. So let's get started. So first of all, the design. The design is very familiar to previous iPads and even the iPads Pros that came out last year. It's the same aluminum unibody design with the chamfer edges on the side here. You've got the dual speakers here and there with the lightning port, and the Pros have the specialty of having the two speakers on the front too, which puts out amazing sound, but I'll talk about the sound later on in the video. But right there you've got your headphone jack, you've got your power button, you've got your volume rockers right there, and then on the back, flip it around here, you have the same 12 megapixel sensor that you have in the iPhone 7 with the quad LED flash there too. So I will talk more about that when I get to the camera. But yeah, so overall the design is very familiar. However, the screen size has increased to 10.5 inches. And it's just slightly bigger than the 9.7 inch, not a whole lot, but just slightly better. But what's most significant is that the bezels have been shrunken on the left and right significantly compared to the iPad Pro 9.7 or even the iPad Air for that matter. So overall, the design, it's pretty good. I'm really a big fan of how they've slimmed those bezels, so those bezels are not as obtrusive as they used to be, but even with the slim bezels, you can still use, it's still very good with palm rejection, so that's not too much to worry about. Now, the next thing I'm wanting to point out is this display, and I think this is the best thing that is on this tablet, is this new feature that Apple is called ProMotion. And basically what it means is the display can refresh at 120 hertz. So the motion of your finger on the display as you move icons or go between screens, it's so fluid. It's going to be nearly impossible for me to show this over video, but it's just so smooth. It's like touching butter for that matter. Let me go into a web page here, as you can see here from Apple's website. If I scroll, look at that scrolling is just incredible. It's so silky smooth. I mean, it's hard to justify it by watching a video. I really recommend you go see it in person, but that's probably the best thing. That's one of the best things on this tablet by far. So the display is amazing. It's bright. It's all that jazz. So the next thing I want to talk about is the speakers, and the speakers are really loud, and they put out a lot of volume. A lot of highs and lows are pretty good. I'm not really much of an audio person myself, but hey, I was quite impressed by the speakers on the tablet. They put out some really good sound. They're definitely comparable to a I wouldn't say a high-end Bluetooth speaker, but they put out some pretty good volume. So I will show you a little bit of that here. I'll pull up one of my videos. So this is one of my videos here. Hey guys, techyShenanigans here. I'm back with another video, and I have in front of me the new 10.5-inch iPad Pro. Now, this was announced at Apple's WWDC. Now, as you can see, that the volume is extremely loud. It's very clear, and it just fills the room very well. So let me shut that off there. So as you can tell, the speakers put out a lot of volume, and it's just overall sounding pretty good. So that's nice. So now performance. And I'm not really going to talk a whole lot about performance because I don't think that most people are going to really care about the tech specs and whatever. But I will say that it's very fast. I'm very fluid. I haven't really had a whole lot of crashes or bugs with this iPad because it's got the latest and greatest from Apple, like you would expect with a new iPad. But for those who actually do care about specs, here is some Geekbench scores that I ran on this tablet. And as you can see here, 3946, and a multi-core score of 9293. Now that's absolutely impressive, but overall, most people are not going to really care much about specs, but if you care about that, which don't get me wrong, it's always nice to have high-end specs, so I'm not complaining. But it's there too, but it's got some really good specs if you like it. So this performance is really nice. Overall, give it a solid A+. Now, another thing that's improved too is the Touch ID sensor, and it's much quicker than it used to be on previous iPads. Now, it's got the second generation sensor with the super fast on Touch ID, so all I have to do is just tap it and it unlocks the iPad. It's incredibly fast. That's another one of my favorites from this device, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. It's a 7 megapixel camera with an f2.2 aperture, which is good for FaceTime calls and whatnot. And then on the back, you basically have the same camera from the iPhone 7. And it's good, it takes really good pictures, but overall, I think you kind of look silly if you take pictures with a tablet. But hey, if you do a lot of document scanning, then that will definitely make your photos that much more crisp. Now, I'm running the latest version of iOS, which is 10.3.3 at the time of this recording, but I think iOS 11 is really going to make this iPad shine when it gets released in the fall. So that should bring new life into the iPad, and whenever iOS 11 drops, I will make a separate video when it comes out on the different features and overall how iOS 11 compares on the iPad from 10.3.2 and basically iOS 10 in general. So I'll make a separate video on that, so stay tuned for that. And overall, my conclusions are, if you like iPads, if you like their portability, if you like their power, if you like having the latest and greatest, then yeah, go for it. In my opinion, the biggest thing that justifies the purchase is the ProMotion display. This display is absolutely phenomenal. It is so silky smooth. Like, I can just go through web pages. It's absolutely stunning, which that alone, I believe, justifies the cost of the tablet. It starts at $649 for 64 gigs, and then it goes up to 256 gigs, and then 512 gigs. And it gets more and more expensive as you go up, which this is actually the 256 gig model, which I think is the perfect sweet spot. But for most people, 64 gigs should be more than enough. So yeah, that is my review of the 10.5-inch iPad Pro. It's powerful, it's portable, and that ProMotion just seals the deal. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. I do read the comments and I do reply to them as soon as I can. This is techyShenanigans here. Hope you have a good day.